Literature gives us the opportunity to experience lives, perspectives, and worlds different from our own. Though remember, friend, a good story has many readings, and this is but one. Look, I know everyone says this is a love story, but hear me out. Imagine you're a 13-year-old girl, back hundreds of years ago when they thought that was old enough to marry. Plus, as custom dictates, your father gets to choose your husband for you, and he's just picked a count twice your age. That's a double yuck. But then one night at a party, you meet this more age-appropriate boy, and whoo, do sparks fly, even though he turns out to be the son of your family's mortal enemies. So then what happens is, actually, you know what? Instead of just telling you about Juliet, do you want to play her? Awesome, you got the part. Thanks so much to Bright Sellers for raising a glass to literature and sponsoring this episode. So you haven't read Romeo and Juliet. That's surprising, because it's one of William Shakespeare's best-loved, and perhaps most misunderstood, tragedies. Riddled with murders, misunderstandings, which of course then leads to more murders, and self-destruction. And at the center of it all is Juliet, who goes through one of Shakespeare's most powerful character arcs. But full disclosure up top, this tale does include suicide. So if you want to steer clear from that topic, that's totally fine, and we'll catch you next time. Okay, everybody ready? Places, please. And action. Two noble families in Verona, the Montagues and the Capulets, have been at war for years. What do you mean why? Reasons, that's why. Anyway, fed up with their constant street brawls, the local prince vows to execute the next person who picks a fight. Cut to Romeo, the only son of the Montagues, having just gone through a pretty bad breakup. So his friends try to cheer him up like typical teenagers would, by making dirty jokes and deciding to crash a party at the Capulets. Meanwhile, Lord Capulet meets with Count Paris, who wants to marry the Capulets' only daughter, Juliet. She's unimpressed when they break the news to her, but she's an obedient daughter, so she consents. But that night, at the Capulets' masked ball, our two only children make masked eye contact and immediately fall deeply into masked love. Aww. But Juliet is stunned after when her nurse informs her that her new beau is none other than Romeo, the son of the family's Montague enemies. Later that evening on her balcony, Juliet laments that she's fallen in love with a Montague, but comes to the conclusion that she'll love him in spite of his name. Meanwhile, Romeo has snuck back into the Capulet estate to see Juliet again and overhears her. They confess their love for each other, and Juliet asks Romeo to promise that he'll arrange for their marriage the very next day. True to his word, Romeo visits his friend Friar Lawrence, who hopes to end the family feud by marrying the two youths. The nurse then brings word of this to Juliet, who immediately sneaks out of the house and marries Romeo. Okay, time for an intermission. Like all of Shakespeare's plays, Romeo and Juliet closely follows principles of classical Western theater. The 5-act structure, for example, comes straight from Roman times, and the emphasis on poetic language was paramount as far back as Greek theater. Shakespeare also employs an element of classic tragedy called a recognition reversal. A moment where the tragic hero recognizes some truth, and then reverses their relationship with certain characters. Romeo and Juliet has been staged, adapted, and reinterpreted thousands of times since it was first performed in the 1590s. It's been reimagined as everything from an opera to a musical to a Baz Luhrmann fever dream, which I love, do not at me, and even a zombie rom-com. Heck, the story didn't even originate with Shakespeare, you know. The great bard of Avon used earlier literary works as the basis for his story. In fact, if we want to get real for a moment, most of Shakespeare's plays weren't original tales. Because back in the Elizabethan England theater world, you could actually move more tickets if the plays were based on well-known stories. And this, of course, was years before copyright law. And what? Oh, right, sorry. Let's get back to our love story, which is about to turn into a hot mess. Our newly married groom is confronted in the street by Tybalt, an angry Capulet kinsman nicknamed the King of Cats. Romeo tries to make peace with Tybalt, but then Romeo's friend Mercutio challenges Tybalt instead. As the two fight, Romeo tries to break up the swordplay, and Tybalt takes advantage of this, killing Mercutio. Now enraged, Romeo then kills Tybalt, and the Capulets demand justice. However, since Tybalt did start the fight, the prince mitigates Romeo's sentence from death to banishment. Then when Juliet learns that her cousin Tybalt is dead, and that her husband is banished, she's despondent. Until her nurse and Friar Lawrence arrange a secret, pre-banishment wedding night for the young couple. What is with these adults trying to get teenagers to hook up consistently? You know what, let's move past it. So that night, Romeo sneaks into Juliet's room, and the next morning slips off to banishment. Shortly after he leaves, Juliet's parents come in with great news. She's to marry Count Paris in a few days. Juliet refuses. And as her raging father threatens to disown her if she doesn't marry Paris, neither Juliet's mother nor her nurse will help her. This is Juliet's moment of recognition and reversal. She recognizes that she has to make her own decisions and that her relationship with her family must irreversibly change. So she decides to go to Friar Lawrence, and if he won't help, she'll commit suicide. Now, since Juliet's already married to Romeo, Friar Lawrence's religious beliefs prevent him from marrying her to Paris, so he suggests she fakes her death to escape her family and join Romeo in exile. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, he just so happens to have a potion on him that can make a person seem super dead. Why does he have this? Reasons. Juliet then takes the potion home, and Friar Lawrence sends a messenger to Romeo to let Loverboy in on the plan. Upon Juliet's return to her family, she tells her father that she'll marry Count Paris. And boy, is he ecstatic. So he moves up the wedding to the very next day, at which point she drinks the potion and immediately falls into a death-like sleep. And when the nurse discovers Juliet dead, House Capulet goes into mourning. And it's about this time that Friar Lawrence's plan goes completely off the rails. Turns out the messenger he sent Romeo to let him in on the plot got delayed, and instead, one of Romeo's friends informs him that Juliet is actually dead. So he buys actual poison and travels back to Verona to die next to Juliet's body. But when he sneaks back into her tomb, he encounters Count Paris. They fight, and Paris is killed. Then, in a surprise moment of dramatic irony, Romeo drinks the real poison and dies, just as Juliet is waking up from the fake poison. Then, realizing what has happened, Juliet takes up Romeo's dagger and kills herself. While Juliet's love of Romeo is absolutely one motivating factor, her realization that her family doesn't necessarily care about her actual happiness also leads her to make many of her fateful choices. So ultimately, far from being a story about the power of love, perhaps Romeo and Juliet is more of a meditation on the cost of hatred. The pointless war between the Capulets and Montagues for reasons destroys their young people, and all the survivors can do is build monuments to their loss. Yeah, again, it never really sounded like a love story to me, but you know what? Don't take my word for it, because our humble animated synopsis is no substitute for reading or seeing the play for yourself. Because as old Billy S. might say, if you're going to read a Shakespeare play, check the listings for your theater seasons. And there each word you'll hear the actors say will help you grasp both his rhymes and reasons. Now take a bow, everyone. You did great. Oh, thank you. You're all too kind. Oh, wow. I haven't tried this one before. Thank you, Bright Cellars. Now, there are two things you should know about me when it comes to wine. One, I really enjoy having it on hand, especially with the upcoming influx of holiday guests. And two, I know absolutely nothing about selecting a good wine. Seriously, before Bright Cellars, I was just picking bottles based on the labels, and that got dicey quick. Bright Cellars is a monthly wine club that's made my process of wine selection an absolute breeze. Not only do they source their wines from small vineyards all over the world, but they also set up a super easy and fun 7-question quiz each month that gathers your taste preferences to deliver you wines you're guaranteed to love. For instance, when I took the quiz, they gave me a question about what chocolate I could eat for the rest of my life. But then I got to select the outside-the-box answer, where's the fruit candy? It's like these folks already know me. Then in a few days, my custom curated box of wine showed up at my door. And while it was super cool to see what Bright Cellars selected for me, it was doubly so when they were right on the money. My favorite being the Ochevado Sauvignon Blanc, which really nailed that bright fruity acidity I was looking for. Whereas Jeff told me he and his wife really dug the Austrian Herz and Heim Zweigelt, a light-bodied red with notes of cherry cola, raspberry, and warm brown baking spices that pairs great with a pork schnitzel. Wait a minute, hold on, Jeff. Where'd you get all this wine knowledge? Ooh, that's right, the wine wisdom cards. For each bottle in your box, they send along a card that outlines the tasting notes, suggested pairings, best serving temperature, and origin. Basically, a neat little mini class filled with info so you can feel like a sommelier at your next dinner party or when you're writing ad reads. Wink. So assuming you're of the appropriate drinking age in your neck of the woods, how would you like to get all of that goodness delivered right to your door and a great deal to boot? Well, right now, you can get your first 6 bottles from Bright Cellars for 50% off by using our link in the description below. That's 6 bottles for just $45, meaning it's less than $8 a bottle for wine curated to your personal taste, which is just bananas. The deal, I mean, not the flavor you want your wine to be, but you know, no judgment. And when you sign up, not only will your taste buds be tantalized, but you'll also be supporting our channel in the process. Cheers to your support. A huge thanks to our legendary patrons, O'Reels1, Kyle Murgatroyd, Joseph Blaine, Dominic Valenciana, Casey Muscha, Alicia Bramble, and Ahmed Ziad Turk.